So, what do we know about St. Gregory of Nyssa? Not a lot. But that's the whole point. There is a lot to know about him, and our future together under his patronage is about learning and engaging in a relationship with St. Gregory of Nyssa. So we might not know much about him today. In the years to come, we might. And it's important. There is one important thing I do know about St. Gregory of Nyssa. His faith was such a part of his life, such a part of his being, that he knew almost instinctively, as much as he knows that the sky turns blue and the grass is green, he knew instinctively that Jesus was God. Jesus was divine. And at the time that he was around, way back in the 4th century, there was a fashion going around saying that actually Jesus was just a good and holy man, just a prophet, a human like you and me. And he instinctively and fiercely defended the divinity of Jesus. And that's important. It's important today for you and for me, and I'll tell you why. Because one of the most important things which distinguish us as a Catholic people is our belief in the sacraments, in the divine presence of Jesus in our worship life, which strengthen us in holiness and make us better people. And if Jesus was not divine, was not God, then there would be no Catholic faith. That's just one thing for us to learn today about how important St. Gregory of Nyssa is important to the faith and to the world and to each one of us. Only Jesus can make things better. Only Jesus can change the world. Only Jesus can cleanse unclean spirits. I mix with quite a lot of people who are not Catholic in various forms over the years, and there's always a fascination by people who are not Catholic with what we call confession or the sacrament of reconciliation. They're both curious and skeptical because they think, well, why would you go and tell your darkest, dirtiest secrets to another human being? And of course, we as Catholics, we don't believe that. We believe that when we meet with the priest, that Jesus himself is present, the divine Jesus. And he is the one, as we hear in the gospel, who has the power and the authority to forgive and to heal and to cleanse. But people are curious by that. They're also very much curious about the notion of the seal of confession and how confidential is it, But there is that fascination from people who are not of the Catholic tradition, but it speaks to the very heart of what we believe, that Jesus is divine and present and active in our world through the power of the sacraments, like confession. Equally, I think we're all kind of fascinated by the sacraments, whether we're slightly distant from our practice and participation in them, or whether we are very much immersed, because there's a great beauty of knowing that God is very much active in our lives and available to us through these signs which are life-changing. I knew a man in a former assignment of mine who was Catholic, not, a great frequenter of the church, but we knew each other and we got on really well. And I would meet him weekly on the high street of the town where we lived. And every time he saw me, he would say to me, Father, when are the confessions in the church? And I'd say, well, Saturday morning, I'll be there. And he'll say, how long for? And I'll say, 1 hour. And he always answered, that's not long enough. I'd need far much more time to make my confession. But that was the exchange week after week after week with the same man, who was a bit, I suppose, distant probably in terms of his practice of the faith, but he was obviously curious and in some ways knowing that he needed to put his life right with God and recognizing that in some ways that only Jesus, through that sacrament, could make him right, could make him whole. But also I feel in the exchange that if I'd said to him, you can come for 3 hours, he probably would have an excuse. The time has to be right. And I often wonder about him as to whether he actually made it to confession. I wonder about him. But I give you that example as somebody who was, say, a bit kind of like weak maybe in the practice of the faith, but there was certainly the belief there in his soul that Jesus could put things right for him. And the recognition in his soul that he needed Jesus, not because Jesus was a holy man or an inspiring preacher, but because Jesus is God. And Jesus is the one who changed lives. Jesus is the one that we need. As a seminarian, I used to visit frequently in hospital with a young girl, actually not much younger than myself, who was suffering with anorexia nervosa. And it was a real trial for her, trying to force herself to eat, but not really engaged. On one occasion visiting her, I said, well, would you like me to bring you Holy Communion? She said, Father, I'd love to, but I don't think I can. How could I possibly receive Jesus if I'm not prepared to receive the food that people want to give me to eat? I don't feel I'm good enough to receive Jesus in communion. Kind of struck me. I thought, this young girl, she was struggling so much, but yet she acknowledged that, she wasn't worthy at her young age to receive Jesus' love in the sacrament, the living Jesus. And I said, well, Alison, Jesus is exactly what you need right now. And so she agreed. And over a period of time, I took her communion. But her example just blew me away, that somebody so young knew the importance of receiving communion, receiving Jesus at that time. And it did enable her to turn a corner. Some years later, I wondered about her, and I kind of reached out to find out what had happened to her. And I was just pleased to find that, eventually she married. Well, first of all, I was delighted to know she was still alive. So ill was the young girl. But she got married and she had a child. And, most importantly, she was a practicing member of her Catholic parish. That Jesus had turned her life around in the way he does for each one of us. And how does he do that? If not through the sacraments of the church, which we cherish and which St. Gregory of Nyssa fiercely defended. Jesus makes us one in his love when we acknowledge that it's only him that can make things right. It's only Jesus that can cleanse the unclean spirit in the gospel. There's protestations, what do you want with me, Jesus? What have you come to destroy us? All those kind of protestations. Maybe the protestations that we ourselves make from time to time. I couldn't possibly go to confession because I've got too many sins. My life has been so bad, Jesus would never want to forgive me. Or, how could I possibly come to church on a Sunday because I'm so busy doing this or that or the other? You see, the unclean spirits, they come from us all. They come from us all. And if the truth be told, the only person who is able to cleanse us, calm us, heal us, make us whole, make us new, is Jesus, the living God, the sacraments of whom we have at our disposal here every day of the year. That is the faith that we are part of, each one of us. And now here at St. Gregory of Nyssa Parish, we have a new patron under whom we can look again at our faith and value the Lord, who is real and powerful and who has authority to renew each one of us and renew our community and reach out to those who really do need God's help. Somebody said to me last night, do you think they'll close our church? Not the first time I've heard that, of course. But it sounded to me remarkably like the gospel. Have you come to destroy us? Cardinal Supich, Father Jeremy, renew my church. Have you come to destroy us? No. On the contrary, Jesus comes to heal us, to renew us. He wants people to believe in him and to come to him always. So please, in the weeks and the months ahead, come together under St. Gregory of Nyssa. Profess your faith in Jesus Christ, who is alive and who is real and not just a holy man. He's God. He's the only person who can make us right. He's the only person who can make us whole. And he's the only person that can really bring our parish together and make us one under him and one under St. Gregory of Nyssa. I believe in one God, the Father, the Almighty,